Hey, I'm Dr. Jerika Dodd, executive editor of PharmaSis Magazine. And I tell you what, when I look at my calendar and I see and I am reminded of some of the amazing women that I know, don't get to talk to every day. Today was definitely one of those days. I looked at my calendar and said, I get to talk to Dr. Arvizu today. And Anne was a part of the PharmaSis Magazine publication in spring of 2021. So you got to picture this. We're still in the middle of this raging pandemic. We were in busy places in our lives. It was Todd Uri that had connected us and said, you two need to know each other. And so here we are, and she's partnering with me as we are publishing the spring issue of PharmaSis Magazine. So before, all right, I'm gonna introduce her. I want to show her pictures so much. All right, and I am, but I'm gonna introduce her first. All right, so I'm so excited to have Dr. Anne Arvizu at the PharmaSis Studios today. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you, Jerika. Thank you so much for having me here.
I am so I'm serious. When I looked at my schedule, and I knew from last week and that you were on my calendar today and that we were going to get to talk. But today, when I'm refreshing myself on what the day holds, this was one of the parts that I was really looking forward to, because it's, when you meet somebody and you build a friendship, and it's like you feel like you've been friends for a long time, but you just met. And then you're in the middle of whatever season you're in your life. And then you do your thing, the other person does their thing, and we're like, that's been a year and a half ago. And now we're back, and it's almost like a year and a half hasn't passed. I am so happy to see you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to see you, and I feel all those sentiments as well. It was an instant connection. We were calling each other sisters on our first conversation, and we just, even today, before in our last conversations, we picked up right where we left off, and that makes my heart happy. So I'm so grateful for you.
And I know that we reserved a lot of what has been going on in our catch up. It was a little bit one-sided because I knew we were going to go live and we were going to hear your catch up and what you've been doing. And so you graciously were interested in catching up with what has been going on with me the last year and a half. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that, oh, wait, I have to show them. So this is what I wanted to show. And look, I've got on the right color today. It just all blends. This is Dr. Anne last spring. And tell them what you told me about where you were when you took this photo.
So when we were talking earlier, I was asking you about your move to Scottsdale. And on that photo, I had been there for a women's entrepreneur meeting in Scottsdale. And I have a friend who's a photographer who flew in from LA. And I said, oh, wow, well, while you're out there, I'll get a photo shoot done. And she graciously did that photo shoot for me in 105-degree weather at one of the hotels out there. So it was beautiful, but boy, were we hot. And if that was 105 degrees in Florida, which is where I live, if people don't know, that wouldn't have grown.
Yes, this is my other favorite picture of you, because you just look like you're in thought. You're thinking what's next. That's my other favorite picture of you.
Thank you.
So what's been going on? When I think of you and I think about what do I want to ask Anne about today, I want to, I alluded a little bit just a second ago about how we met each other at very busy times in our lives, and how sometimes life is coming for us and we don't even know it. We're not prepared. Sometimes we get a little bit of a heads up. Sometimes we know where we want to go in life and we start going down that road, and it ends up being a little bit different than we expected. We talked about that with me. So tell me, where has the last year and a half, what has it been like? Because I know you personally have taken some time to just navigate life. Where has that been for you?
I sure have. That is a loaded question and statement, which, do you have the rest of the night? So, my gosh. when I was doing that photo shoot, one of the reasons I did that photo shoot, which was before you even asked me to be in PharmaSis Magazine at this, that had
Mhm.
happened. I just wanted kind of those pictures, and that was in 2020. So we're in the middle of the pandemic,
Yeah.
and it was my first trip, and my entrepreneur group said, no, we're still going to meet. We need it. And so we all double, triple masked. We got on planes. We flew. And we were scared. Do we not take our masks off in public and all that?
Yeah.
And by the end of, we weren't being non-cautious because a lot of us were healthcare professionals, but we were seated at rounds of 8 tables were now like limited to 3 people.
Right.
So they
Mhm.
spaced out well. We were able to take off masks if you felt comfortable, and we
Mhm.
were there, but I hadn't been feeling well. And on that trip, not only did I do the photo shoot with my friend Leslie, I I climbed Camelback Mountain because I needed to prove to myself what's going
Mhm.
on with me. I hadn't been feeling well. I had been going to doctor after doctor for about 2 years prior,
Mhm.
and I was gaining weight, and I was telling OBGYNs and endocrinologists and what have you that I wasn't feeling quite myself. And I got patted on the knee in our wonderful medical system going, oh, well, you're just going into menopause. Now, I had gone into early menopause. So I went into early menopause in my late 30s. And
Oh.
so I knew that I wasn't feeling right for a long
Mhm.
time. And as of mid last year, I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer.
Mhm.
So there is nothing like that phone call. I went in for a polyp removal, and 2 days later, I thought, oh my gosh, my doctor's so thoughtful. Like, I'm an extrovert, so I just think everybody loves me. So I'm like, my doctor's calling me. She's just, she's just trying to check how I am. I'm like, hi, Dr. Arnold, how are you? Doing great. Laying here reading like I'm supposed to. And she was like, I'm so sorry to tell you. And I'm so glad she chose these words. The polyp was cancerous. So I'm
Mhm.
so glad she didn't use those "you have" or "you
Yeah.
are" or whatever.
Mhm.
I was not labeled. And
Right.
I was immediately empowered to, okay, well then it has it and it is coming out. So literally within that one conversation it was still a blast of a conversation of
Right.
Monday, that was Thursday at 1 p.m. By Monday, you're going to meet your oncologist and you're going to talk about your total hysterectomy. And so I was like in utter shock.
I'm sure.
But that as a person of faith, it was like immediate that after the initial scream and cry, you know, it was like we dug in and just knew that it was going to be okay. And signs started happening. It was like little things. Even that weekend, I was invited to a Jack Canfield event and I was in the VIP section because I'm a published author, as you know, and I was going to be listening to him in Miami. And during the pandemic, it was canceled.
Mhm.
Just that Friday, I got the email that we're going to redo the meeting with Jack Canfield on Saturday, and you're invited for that meeting. And I got to
Mhm.
talk to Jack Canfield about my diagnosis. Like it was utter divine, perfect timing to have someone like Jack Canfield, who's this amazing mentor to so many people, show
Right.
up and say, you know what, check out Dr. Joe Dispenza's stuff, or
Mhm.
this is what I would think. And ask yourself this question: what if cancer wasn't happening to you? What if it was happening for you?
Right.
And it was
So
like,
let me
that's a
ask you,
moment right there.
let me ask you because in our journey as pharmacists, I talk to a lot of women pharmacists. And if they haven't had a little taste of Jerika Dodd yet, and I go, so tell me your story. Tell me about you. They'll tell me their pharmacy story. And I do
Mhm.
this air quotes because I don't believe there's a pharmacy story. I believe your story is your story. And so the pieces and the parts that you just shared about your life, because that's part of your story, don't get
Mhm.
left out when someone meets you and they go, well, who's Ann Arvizu? You don't tell them the pharmacy part. You
Right.
tell who you are, what you've experienced, what you've been through. And so I commend you because we obviously did not script this interview. And you're like, hey, I just want you to know this is my story.
Mhm.
Talk to the audience that is like, "Oh, I would never disclose that type of information." I mean, who like to talk about their degrees, their accolades, their all of their accomplishments. With those are wonderful.
Yeah,
However, when it comes down to knowing a person, that doesn't help me know you. But when I
right.
understand your story and your journey, it helps me, which is why I think we bonded so quickly, because we didn't get on the phone and go, oh, well, I have a PharmD from here and I have a PharmD from here. We were like, look, let me tell you, this is what I've been through. This is what I'm going through. This is what my life is like. And I think that was like that instant,
Yeah.
that's what we experienced. Talk about why it's so important for you to share your journey and your story and not just what you've achieved.
Right. So, yes, there are those accolades. Yeah, I have a PharmD, 25 years in the pharmaceutical industry, but the expertise that I have is in medical information. It's in getting patients the information they need, and it's in getting doctors that information as well, writing the data, getting it out there. And what I saw through my journey was unacceptable to me. It was absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of people don't understand this still in the medical community, which is why, education and awareness around this is so critical. So I'm not going
Mhm,
to just dummy it down and hide it and say, oh, I'm just fine and cancer free. No, what I went through was unacceptable in the medical community. What I experienced and the
mhm,
delays or lack of power or lack of control, these are things
mhm,
that, as healthcare professionals, we need to be aware about, and we need to be aware of our own body parts. And a lot of women, September, for example, is Gynecological Cancer Awareness Month. There's
mhm.
5 different ribbons, and uterine is mentioned, but like, so people don't even put uterine and endometrial cancer together, which
Yeah.
90% of uterine cancers are endometrial, and is still 80% of that rest of that pod, which includes, of course, ovarian. You've heard of
Mhm,
that one. You've heard of the pink ribbon. We all know about
mhm.
breast cancer, but nobody
Right.
knows about the peach ribbon. And so I
Yep.
was shocked that I couldn't find anything that was like a support group that wasn't absolutely depressing. I saw on Facebook people, great that there's groups and there's some place for you to go, but there's
Mhm,
thousands of women in there and they get lost in the shuffle. And for me, I'd go on there and I'd see someone with stage 4, which is something I didn't have. And it was like, wow, we just lost our sister today. I'm going in there crying. Like, I was putting myself into a mental state that I didn't
mhm.
need for healing. Right. So
Right.
for me to turn my face towards healing, towards wholeness, and going through the process, I needed to look at something else. And
Mhm.
then with regards to patient data, there were 83,000 studies. I'm going to do my PubMed, right? So there were 83,000 studies on endometrial cancer, and not one, when you went all the way down and filtered down into different criteria, because I had myself and a team do it that I have
Mhm.
that works with me, and not one had patient input. So the voice of this
Mm,
patient is completely silenced. The community of this patient is completely scattered. And
mhm.
this is the second most common female cancer. So
And
it is,
it's interesting that you bring up the piece about patient input and how often we know it as healthcare professionals, but it's
Mhm.
something else when we walk it as patients. When we're in the middle of our own patient crisis, our own
Yeah,
patient experience, that was the same that I had. I was like, this is broken.
yeah,
This is when I was going from physician to physician, specialty to specialty, begging one to please talk to another so that they could hopefully come up with what was really going on. And they
yeah.
were looking at me like I was speaking Greek. And I was like, this is broken. This is wrong. I am running
Oh,
around with a volume of my healthcare records saying,
yeah,
please look at the whole picture. Please talk to your colleague over here who said that. I was like, I think that is probably what fueled me going all the way. I think I told you I went all the way to Johns Hopkins and got into, because I was like, I couldn't get what I needed support wise, health wise, in the
hmm,
Metro Atlanta area at the time. And it's when we become the CEOs of our health which I'm grateful that we are healthcare professionals, because eventually we realize that we're part of a system that isn't able to necessarily serve us. So then we go, okay, I'm getting in front of this train, and we start driving, and then there comes your outcome. So you wonder, if you didn't have the background you have, if you
Right.
didn't have the knowledge you have, would your outcomes have been what they are, as good as they are today?
Absolutely not. I've had to advocate for myself. I had to ask the right questions. I got second
Mhm.
opinions. Thank God I didn't have to have chemo, but I did go through radiation and I
Mhm.
did due diligence on studies. I asked a lot of questions. Instead of getting CT scan, I, did risk benefit study on PET scan because of a particular, concern that I had. So I said, I'd rather do one of these every so
Mhm.
often instead of this with this giant needle and this drink that the barium drink, IBS-C like symptoms after a major hysterectomy, and you're going to make me feel worse for another week. So
Right.
patients don't know what to ask for.
Yeah.
And then changing your chart afterwards, because our words are containers of
Yeah.
power, right? They
Yeah.
bring life or death is in the power of the tongue. And
It is.
so for me, when I was going into my chart, it said, endometrial carcinoma. And I said, no, I did have it. I am medically and surgically cancer free now. So
Right.
you need to put that as past history. And then
Right.
until proven otherwise, we'll change it if it needs to. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm done
Mhm.
there. So
Yeah.
my doctor changed it. And he'd be like,
Um,
okay. So that's
how
really
many
great. I have a great
how many
oncologist.
people how many people know to even look in their chart, to even contest what's
Mm,
written and the tense that it's written and what it says in their chart? Many
no.
people don't. How
Yeah.
many people even know, one, the terminology, would understand the terminology, unfortunately, but most of us are not taught in our current healthcare system to be advocates for ourselves. And so I don't have one on today, but I've got shirts that say everyone needs a pharmacist. And I will think that from now on, because I really do believe what I've, when in seeing what I've been able to do and seeing what friends like you have been able to do in advocating for yourself, potentially other family members, I advocated for my parents, and I wonder, like, what would have been their health outcomes if they hadn't had a daughter who just happened to be a pharmacist,
Mhm.
because I was going to doctor's appointments. I was asking questions about adverse events and saying, "Hey, we're seeing this. Can we go down on the dose, or should we?" I was asking those questions that my parents were not even capable of even understanding to
Yeah.
even ask, much less, if they were capable, feeling that they could ask,
Right.
because we live in a very patriarchal healthcare society. And
Yes.
so I will always believe that everyone needs a pharmacist. Of course, I'm biased. However, I really think it's true for that reason, because you're able to ask the questions, you're able to synthesize quite a bit of data. We are able to synthesize quite a bit of data and go, well, what does that mean? The average person is not doing a PubMed search when they get a diagnosis.
Right. It's true. It's true. And we all do need an advocate if we can do this ourselves. But, I have the same experience as you, helping family, helping friends,
Right.
being that phone call after they talk to the doctor because they just don't know what to
Yeah,
do. And they still trust us. Remember, like America's #1 trusted profession. I
we
don't
are.
know if that's still the case. But yes, I hope it
Oh, I
is.
know. I think it is, because, and I know we know, one of our big retail outlets use that as part of their slogan, being trusted, that America trusts. I'm not trying to, give any play to any retail outlets. Nonetheless, it's true, because, oftentimes when I meet people, all I have to say is I'm a pharmacist, and they
Yeah.
begin to just tell me their story. And I'm like, well, wait, you don't know me. Like, I think that we are very much trusted. And it is for that reason. Obviously, I don't relish in the experience you had as a patient, or in the parts of your journey that we've talked about today, but I relish, number one, to see you on this side of that journey. And I
Thank you.
also relish in all of the insights, all of the ahas, and all of the whatever made you be this version of Anne after going through that part of your journey. Those are the things that I know that we say, you know what, it wasn't fun, that I'd never, necessarily want to do that again.
Yeah.
However, what the things that are to come from it, I'm very excited for. So I know that as which is why like it didn't even matter that it's been a year and a half that we've been in contact, because you like we're so alike in that
I know.
we get those lemons, and if I know in Arvizu, she is back there in the background and she is making lemonade. And so tell us about the lemonade you have made as a result of your journey last year.
Okay, well, I'll start off just, parlaying right off of that play on words. So when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. Throw in a peach lemonade.
Right.
But throw in a peach pit because it's the peach ribbon for cancer, and peaches are a stone fruit. And you don't
Yeah.
want that stone. It's actually toxic
Yeah.
inside. So make some peach pit jam out of it. And that detoxifies the whole situation. So peach pit jam with Dr. Ann is going to be my next podcast. I'm still going to keep corepreneur.
Hmm.
I closed my business, RXCR Communications, at the end of last year. One,
Hmm.
because except if you were a pharmacist, nobody knew how to say RXER. They would all say Rexer. So finally, I got rid of it because only a pharmacist got it. And we renamed it as Core Life Group. So that's still the pharma division. But I think that that's really going away. And what I
Hmm.
created this year is I actually I launched my first nonprofit organization. So it's my second business, but my first nonprofit. So we got our 501c3
Hmm.
for the Endometrial Cancer Foundation. And now we have created an advocacy for women with endometrial cancer and their caregivers so that
Hmm.
they have an educational platform to come for not only information, but inspiration as well.
Ah, see, I knew you were back in the kitchen making some lemonade. I knew it. Some peach lemonade. Wow. And it's amazing that, and I don't know if this would have been your goal or what you might have worked on if you had not had the journey that you had, but it doesn't matter, because I'm convinced that the things that occur along our journey definitely help give us direction, help give us guidance to the next step. Because I think that as pharmacists, sometimes we can get so rooted in what we think we should be doing or what we've decided to do. And we're like, I'm going to plant my feet and cement them right here. And then the lemons come and we turn around and we go, oh, well, I'm going to make some lemonade. And this lemonade has peach flavor. And
Yeah.
so it's a little different from the previous projects that you were working on, but yet very timely, yet very needed,
Mhm.
very appropriate. I can't think of a better warrior to be leading a foundation and an initiative like you. So like I'm like so happy to see you on this side. And when we reached out to say, hey, we'd like to feature you in our Where Are They Now? I mean, like, it's only been a year and a half since we featured you in PharmaSis Magazine back in the spring of 21. But I knew that enough had happened and that you were up to something new. And I was like, you know what, I want to have Anne as a feature to be like, what's going on now, so that you could continue to be part of my mission to inspire women in pharmacy to, number one, think about things beyond the traditional core of pharmacy as we know it. There's so much more that can be
Yeah.
done. Wait till you hear about what I've got coming next. We're not going to talk about it here, but we'll talk about it. Like, there's so much that we can do, and there's so much that can be done, and there's so many people who need a pharmacist in one way or another, in the traditional sense, but in all the other ways that these amazing women in PharmaSis Magazine, and who are not in the magazine, who are just pharmacists in the profession, we're all needed. I am convinced we're all needed. And so I am like so excited that to be able to feature you again and go, yeah, that was in 2021, but let me tell you what she's doing now. Tell you what she's up to now. That is really exciting. So I'm so grateful that when we knocked on your door, you were like, sure, no problem. And I can't wait for viewers and people to see this replay and go, oh, yeah, that's what she's doing. But I also want people to be inspired and know that these journeys, that we don't always pick the stops along the way. We don't pick them. We don't necessarily get to totally chart the map of which byways and highways we're going to travel along. However, your journey, as much as I know of it, has been very inspiring.
Thank you. I wouldn't wish what I went through on
Yeah.
anyone. And that's the thing. You have no idea the depth of it, the loneliness of it, right? Nobody literally walks back into the hallway, into those tests or those things but you,
Mm.
or to the surgery. You're the only one going through it when you have
Mhm.
this or some other kind of chronic illness, which you are very, very well versed in.
Mhm.
And so it's just to understand the patient journey,
Mhm.
and see the patient side of it after 25 years in the data side. It was a huge eye opener,
Mhm.
and heart opener. So I
Mhm.
think that is a big key. And if I could teach that to other pharmacists, um, without them
Mhm.
having to go through something so that they
Right.
could help patients, that would be really a wonderful thing.
Because even to hear you say that, I mean, my journey with the brain surgery, that was 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago. Well, let me
Mhm.
tell you, you're absolutely right. You're walking into exam rooms, into test diagnostic centers by yourself, and you find yourself trying to, as a person who is, something's not well, something's really wrong. You
Mhm.
almost you even look for glimmers of recognition amongst the people who are serving you in the healthcare field. You're looking at the technician like, if I could just get a reassuring glance. You're listening to the tone of the voice of the person who is assisting you to get into the MRI machine, and
Yeah.
you find yourself just so grateful. Like when they go, do you need a blanket? You need an extra pillow under your knees. All of these little things that we don't even think about, but because you're in there by yourself, you are grateful. You find yourself leaving going, oh wow, I am so grateful for that wonderful technician that made that
Yes.
experience as palatable as it could be given the
Yeah.
circumstances. And those are things, because I had an MRI a couple weeks ago, and I found myself very grateful for the technician, for even the woman who walked me back. I mean, she's like got about this space of time to talk to me on the way back to the locker room to change. And just even those few words, and her coming back saying, is there any other doctor that we need to make sure gets a copy of these results? And,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, there is. That type of thing, all of those things really mattered to me in those
Mhm.
moments. And I imagine they matter to you because
Yes.
we're back there by ourselves.
Yes, yes. I resonate with that so much and had very, very similar experiences all along the way. And then
Mhm.
there's those, practitioners that aren't so nice or are a
Yes.
little bit cold. And they, that's something that is a huge lesson for healthcare
Yeah.
professionals on every
Yeah.
level. Yeah, I
So
couldn't agree more.
Dr. Ann, I know that when people see this, and they want to know more about you. They are going, I don't know how you could not want to know Anne. You want to know Anne. If you don't know Anne and you're watching this, Jarika Dodd says you need to know Anne. I said it last spring and I'm saying it again. You need to get to know Dr. Anne Arvizu. And for those people who don't know you, who haven't talked to you in a while, who need to catch up, or what line do they need to get in? Like, where do you want your line to form? Just let us know. Where do you want your line to form? So basically, I'm asking, what's the best way for people to contact you so that they can follow up, catch up, introduce, connect, collaborate, find out more about this peach lemonade? I love that you're making, and ask, how can they support? How can they get involved? They may even know people that they want uh, to be aware of the work that you're doing. And so, how can people get in touch with you?
I think LinkedIn is the best. LinkedIn /Anne Arvizu, ANNEARVIZU. You can see it here. So send me a LinkedIn message if you don't have that form of LinkedIn and you can't send a message. I think you can still. Message anybody on LinkedIn. Okay, so
Right.
connect, and I'm social, so I'll connect back.
Yes, she is. She will connect back. And I will tell you that, as I mentioned earlier, that suggestion from Todd for you and I to connect, you were the very first name he mentioned. Yes, you were the very first name he mentioned. He was like, Anne Arvizu, you need to get to know Anne Arvizu. And literally, I was like, have I known her all my life? Because we just start like, and you remember we spent the whole hour talking. We never recorded the podcast. We had to reschedule to do that because we literally were like this from our first conversation. And I'm grateful for that. I am so happy to see your smile today. I am
Thank you.
so happy to share your smile again in the upcoming issue of PharmaSis Magazine for the anniversary edition. I can't wait for even more people to see this smile again. And I'm glad to see that your journey brought you your newest assignments and
Mm.
to see you working on those. So thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today.
Thank you, Jarika. Always a beautiful pleasure to be with you. Much love.
You too. You too. All right. So, for those of you who are watching this on replay, definitely make sure that you get in touch with Dr. Anne Arvizu. She is one to know. All right. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.